What if happiness isn't what we were taught as children? It's not the smiling faces in photographs, society's checklist achievements, a ring on the finger, social media likes, or a prestigious job praised by others while you still wake up feeling empty. What if these are mere facades we reluctantly wear, afraid to admit to ourselves that underneath lies silence, doubts, and an internal fracture? From a young age, we're conditioned to the illusion that happiness is something to showcase, prove, and compare. Yet it remains elusive, vanishing once the applause fades. In this quietness, a troubling question surfaces. Who am I if I strip away all these props? We don roles like masks in a theater. The good daughter, caring mother, faithful wife, ideal employee. We strive to be accommodating, understandable, and right. We believe happiness will come once everyone approves of our life. But each step taken out of fear of rejection, rather than from the heart, causes us to lose a piece of ourselves. Suddenly we awaken in a world that seems right, but where we feel suffocated, constrained, and disconnected. Many women live by others' standards, never asking the simple yet revolutionary question, what do I want? Where is my own? Yes, where is my own? True happiness begins with this question, from the moment you stop trying to conform and allow yourself to simply be. Carl Jung spoke of true happiness, not as a reward for social behavior or external praise for following a script. It's a state of internal harmony between the conscious and the unconscious, between what you know about yourself and what's been hidden in your soul. It's an agreement with oneself that can't be imposed or fabricated. It doesn't appear immediately. First comes anxiety, then emptiness, followed by a persistent feeling of wanting something else. And after a long inner journey, a subtle sense of peace emerges, impossible to explain, but unmistakable. A woman in tune with herself can be both vulnerable and strong, gentle and decisive. There's no contradiction, as she doesn't choose between roles. She lives her wholeness. She stops playing roles, hiding, holding her breath, waiting for someone to validate her life. She simply breathes, simply lives. And it's at this moment that the most important journey begins, the path to true self-discovery. A path where multifacetedness stops being a threat and becomes a gift. When you understand that you aren't obligated to be one singular entity, that within you are many faces, states, archetypes, each important. This understanding doesn't come quickly. It arrives like spring, starting timidly through the internal cold, then confidently with strength and warmth. That's when the next movement begins. Accepting your multi-layered nature, the ability not only to understand yourself, but to love yourself. When a woman allows herself to think that she is more than a single role, an astonishing truth unfolds before her. Inside her lives not one personality, but a collection of inner voices, states, energies. This isn't chaos or a split. It's the nature of the feminine soul, its depth, its true structure. We are not one-dimensional. We shouldn't be the same every day. We can be diverse, and therein lies not weakness, but a source of inner strength. Imagine a mirror shattered into many pieces. Each reflects a part of your face, but not one completely. Likewise, a woman confined to a single social role might appear confident, successful, even happy, yet inside feel something is amiss. This sense of incompleteness, like living someone else's life, isn't a whim, but a signal from the soul longing for wholeness. As Jung noted, the soul tires of being fragmented. It calls for reunification. Jung, one of the first in psychology, showed that archetypes reside within us, deep images shaped by millennia of human evolution. They aren't mere metaphors, but active forces in the unconscious that influence our thinking, behavior, and choices. Within a woman can coexist several archetypes: the gentle maiden, nurturing mother, strong Amazon, enigmatic shadow. Each manifests in specific situations, emotions, reactions. A woman's nature is like a forest, with both sunny clearings and dense shadows, winds of freedom and deep roots. If a woman identifies solely with one of these images, she loses contact with other parts of herself. For example, if she lives entirely as the mother archetype, caring, selfless, over time, she may feel depleted, forget her desires, lose inner support. Or if she lives only as the Amazon, strong, independent, unreachable, she risks losing her tenderness, openness, trust. Internal imbalance always creates tension, anxiety, a sense of lack, even if outwardly everything seems perfect. But recognizing one's archetypes paves the way to healing, balance, not self-conflict, but reconciliation. When a woman stops seeing any part of herself as wrong, inconvenient, foreign, starts recognizing strength in each part, she begins to unite herself as a whole. She realizes, I can be both soft and tough, passionate and calm. I can be different, and it doesn't make me unstable, it makes me alive. In accepting multifacetedness, the next crucial discovery begins: the encounter with the shadow, the part we've long rejected or haven't been aware of. Perhaps this is the most transformative meeting a woman faces on her journey to herself. The shadow isn't an enemy. It doesn't lie in wait to destroy us. It simply waits for us to stop turning away. It contains everything a woman once deemed unacceptable: suppressed anger, repressed desires, forgotten ambition, unrecognized strength, shame, pain, envy, fear. But as Jung stated, only those who recognize the shadow can become whole. Without this part of the soul, we wander the world with a missing fragment, not understanding why we constantly feel unworthy, tired, irritable. Too often, women reject in themselves precisely what could become their support. They fear their decisiveness, labeling it selfishness. They fear anger and become accommodating. They fear passion and pretend they need nothing. But repressed forces don't disappear. They return in distorted forms: irritation without cause, chronic fatigue, inexplicable melancholy. And the more a woman tries to be good, the greater the internal tension grows. The shadow is a mirror reflecting not only what we fear, but also what might liberate us. It contains tremendous power that's suppressed until recognized. For example, if a woman believes her purpose is to be soft and submissive, she might not notice her inner Amazon suffering in exile. In turn, this Amazon manifests in bursts of anger, irritation, a sense of life passing by. But once she acknowledges this strength's right to exist, not in destruction, but in understanding, a new quality emerges within: resilience. Working with the shadow is not a moment but a process. It's an internal journey where a woman gradually turns towards herself, acknowledging what once seemed unacceptable. She stops judging herself for emotions, desires, weaknesses. She begins viewing herself, not through the eyes of the external world, but through her own soul. She starts asking not what others will say, but what she feels. Returning to oneself is profound, sometimes painful, yet always liberating. The deeper a woman accepts her shadow, the stronger her intuition becomes because, through recognizing all parts of herself, she starts hearing herself truly, deeply. Here, in the silence on the edge of awareness and premonition, that voice is born, a voice not needing external noise. The intuition, wise, ancient, knowing. When a woman stops hiding her shadows and allows herself to feel everything, even what's uncomfortable, strange, incomprehensible, a special strength awakens within her. It doesn't shout, doesn't demand proof. It simply knows. This strength is intuition. It can't be learned from a textbook or explained with logic. It lives deep inside and becomes louder when a woman stops fearing herself. Intuition is the soul's voice, cleansed of external world's noise. It's not a sudden insight or magic, as often believed. It's a channel between consciousness and the unconscious, between what we are aware of and what we have long known but haven't expressed in words. Jung considered intuition one of the main conductors of the unconscious. Through intuition, our often ignored parts speak to us amidst our pursuit of rationality, correctness, logic. A woman who begins listening to her intuition gains an anchor that no external person can provide. She's no longer swayed by others' opinions because she feels when something is hers and when it's imposed. She doesn't need lengthy arguments because she can sense with her body where the truth lies. Her internal compass guides her precisely and delicately, even when everyone around insists it's risky, wrong, or crazy. Her intuition is the voice of accumulated life experience, subconscious associations, bodily wisdom, and ancient archetypes. She simply listens, but to clarify this voice, it needs space. Intuition doesn't speak through anxiety, fear, haste, or constant comparisons with others. It requires inner silence, attentiveness, and deep trust. Trusting oneself when no one else supports you is perhaps the hardest thing to do. Being able to say yes when the world says no, and feeling no when everything around insists on yes, not out of stubbornness, but because you know it's not working for you. In this knowledge lies power. A woman who trusts her intuition doesn't swing to extremes. She is calm. She can be decisive without tension. She can be gentle without weakness, because intuition is an internal truth guiding her to herself. And this path isn't always straightforward. It demands trials and errors, attention and courage to hear what isn't always pleasant. In this lies maturity, not seeking guarantees from the outside, but learning to feel and acknowledge your inner truth. The clearer this voice becomes, the more stable the woman becomes. And then arises something more than just intuition. An internal structure forms, based on self-trust. This guides the next step, awakening the inner masculine, connecting with the animus. Because intuition points the way, but moving forward requires strength, will, clarity, and the ability to act. All of these stem from balance. Balance with one's inner masculine energy. Intuition whispers the direction, but taking steps requires an internal backbone to resist external pressures, not betray oneself in moments of doubt, not retreat when afraid. Here, a woman's inner masculine energy, the animus, as Jung described it, comes to her aid. It's not literally a man inside, but an archetype symbolizing decisiveness, action, logical thinking, boundary setting, and firm decision-making. It's a part without which it's impossible to be not only confident, but also to move forward. Too often, women fear their strength, fearing being too harsh, too assertive, or lacking femininity. They're taught from childhood to be soft, yielding, convenient. At some point, they truly begin to believe that strength isn't for them, that leadership, confidence, and actions are for others, not them. But the truth is, without the animus, one can't be whole, because it provides the ability to establish personal boundaries, to say no when necessary and yes when desired. It doesn't suppress femininity, it protects it. When a woman ignores her animus, she becomes vulnerable. Her energy disperses, she loses focus, cannot stand up for her desires. It's hard for her to express what she wants, because the voice responsible for intentions and strength is muted. She may be very sensitive, perceiving the world subtly, but without an awakened internal structure, All these sensations lack form, don't translate into action. Inside, there's chaos. Outside, dependence on external decisions. But as soon as a woman begins recognizing her inner man, not as an enemy, not as foreign energy, but as part of herself, much changes. She stops fearing her decisiveness. She learns to be straightforward, not brusque, but clear. She stops expecting someone else to come and solve her problems. She becomes the one who acts, makes choices, takes responsibility, not because she must, but because she can. This doesn't negate her intuition, emotions, or nuance. On the contrary, the inner animus creates a space for these to thrive safely, serving as a foundation for expression, a frame for the picture. Without it, a woman often drowns in her sensitivity, adapts to others' expectations, fears loneliness, and errs not out of stupidity, but due to the lack of inner firmness. And the animus provides this firmness, not harshly, but confidently, steadily, maturely. Once a woman connects with this part of herself, she no longer needs constant approval. She's not afraid of being alone. She doesn't rely on external validation. She knows the strength is within her. This strength gives her tranquility, where there's no need to shout, justify, or prove her worth. It's then she first truly tastes freedom. It's this internal freedom that leads to the next significant step: liberation from the fear of loneliness. This fear isn't about external emptiness, but internal incompleteness. When a woman reunites her strength and softness, light and shadow, reason and intuition, she's finally truly able to be with herself. In this solitude, she unexpectedly discovers not pain, but peace. When a woman begins to feel her internal power, not outward bravado, not showy independence, but genuine, quiet, deep confidence, the oldest fear recedes, the fear of being alone. This fear rarely speaks aloud. It hides behind rational explanations, social roles, the habit of needing others. At its core lies the belief that without someone, she isn't whole, that without external love, she is an empty space, that without recognition, without a partner, without support, she wouldn't cope. This fear isn't personal. It's passed down through generations, especially to women. It's ingrained in fairy tales, upbringing, culture. A prince will come and save you. A man will make you strong. Love will give meaning. Family, a status. And if you're alone, then something's wrong. This pressure deeply embeds itself into the psyche. Even the most successful and self-sufficient woman can feel anxiety deep down if she's alone. But herein lies the deception, for loneliness, contrary to fear, doesn't destroy. It cleanses. A woman who is alone, yet not lonely inside, is capable of internal wonders. She starts hearing herself, seeing her life, not as a fragment of someone else's script, but as a whole story she controls. She doesn't seek love, she radiates it, not because she needs to, but because she simply is. She doesn't ask for attention. She doesn't demand it because she knows her worth. She's not running from silence, because it's in this silence that she hears the most important thing: her own voice. This doesn't mean she doesn't need relationships. It means they aren't a crutch, but a choice. She can be in a partnership, and it will be wonderful. But she might also not be, and that won't be catastrophic either. Her value doesn't depend on whether there's someone nearby. She's already whole, already worthy, already exists as a complete entity. And this is what makes her free. Free from emotional dependency, from compromises that betray herself, from the fear that without someone else, her life has no meaning. Jung said, "A person becomes truly mature when able to withstand their individuality. And this is loneliness, not as isolation, but as a space of selfhood. a space where breathing is full, making choices without fear, speaking without excuses. A woman who has passed through her fear of being alone and emerged alive and whole becomes a source of strength unmanipulable, because she already possesses the most valuable thing, herself. When this fear disappears, a silence is born. Not emptiness, not boredom, not sadness, but mature, deep, peaceful silence where a new state emerges, self-acceptance. Because no longer is there a need to fight for someone else's love. No longer is there a need to be comfortable, needed, perfect. You can be yourself. You can breathe. And this is true liberation. When a woman is first alone with herself and no longer feels anxiety in it, she encounters something even more fundamental: the necessity to learn to accept herself. Not endure, not put up with, not justify, but accept, as you accept breathing, as you accept the morning, as you accept the nature of things. This goes deeper than merely acknowledging merits. It is agreeing with yourself in wholeness, with what is beautiful and what hurts, with tenderness and anger, with strength and vulnerability, with shadow and light. Self-acceptance is not an endpoint, but the beginning of a genuine life. As long as a woman lives under the weight of expectations, ideals, norms, she will always feel guilt for the unsaid, for the unearned, for not being ideal enough, even for her own imperfections, which make her alive. But as soon as she stops judging herself through others' eyes, her internal world begins to restore, heal, gather anew like a mosaic, where not only bright fragments matter, but also cracks and chips, because in them is history. Jung taught that shadow integration is a necessary step on the path to wholeness. One can't be truly strong if they constantly deny what they've once rejected in themselves. Insecurities, envy, fear, dependence. All these aren't defects, but parts of the journey. And when a woman allows herself to see in them not an enemy but a teacher, she begins to change without pressure, without violence against herself. She feels for the first time, I can be imperfect and still deserving of love. Not for achievements, not for convenience, but simply for being. This state doesn't come instantly. It's slow, sometimes painful. It requires the courage to look at oneself without masks, demands silence where one's own voice can be heard, and requires a space to be genuine. But when it arrives, it brings not only peace, but also power. A woman who has accepted herself has no need for approval. She can listen to others, but not live by their rules. She can love, but not dissolve. She can err without falling apart inside. Self-acceptance is the foundation of true confidence, not the kind that shouts, proves, competes, but one that breathes calmly, needing no explanations, not depending on external evaluations. It's confidence that comes from within and isn't afraid to be seen without makeup, without a role, without protection. It's honesty. And in this honesty, a woman first feels, I don't have to become anyone to have worth. I already am. I already can. I am already worthy. In this state, without pressure, without comparison, without fear, true inner harmony emerges, where femininity isn't opposed to strength but becomes part of it, where one doesn't fight but is, doesn't battle but shines. From this state arises not just peace but maturity, the ability to balance, to integrate everything within. And the next step is a deep merging of the masculine and feminine, because true power is always in unity of opposites. When a woman stops warring with herself, it's time for the deepest understanding. All that exists within isn't enemies or opposites. These are parts of one whole, which she is. She embodies softness and strength, tenderness and decisiveness, silence and action, feminine and masculine, No need to choose between them, as true maturity begins when we no longer oppose but unite. In today's world, women are often torn apart. Be strong but not too much. Be beautiful but not provocative. Be gentle but not foolish. Be ambitious but not intimidating. These societal prescriptions push women either to suppress their softness to survive in a competitive world, or to relinquish strength so as not to lose femininity. However, both paths lead to distortion, to overreach, creating internal conflict where one part of their identity sidelines another, resulting in internal imbalance. Jung proclaimed that every person carries both masculine and feminine aspects. Feminine energy is intuition, care, acceptance, fluidity, connection to the inner world. Masculine energy is logic, structure, will, boundaries, direction. When these energies don't compete, but cooperate, wholeness emerges. Then a woman can be decisive without harshness, soft without weakness. She can act without the fear of losing love, and can love without losing herself. Balance isn't mathematics. It's a dance. Today, you need to be firm, leaning on your masculine energy. Tomorrow, embrace, forgive, let go, relying on your feminine. You can switch, listen to yourself, feel which part of you needs expression at a given time. You're not stuck in one role, not acting according to others' templates. You're alive, genuine, attuned to yourself. When internal femininity, soft, warm, attentive, is supported by a mature masculine foundation, it engenders a state where a woman becomes unreachable by external pressure. She no longer needs to choose to be either tender or successful, sensitive or strong. She is both. Her strength isn't in a mask, not in armor, but in honesty with herself, in a profound accord between her energies. This accord gives resilience, whereby external circumstances no longer dictate who she should be. And within this balance arises the state many seek, mature confidence. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply exists in her walk, decisions, in how a woman says no, in how she chooses herself, not by rejecting love, but by respecting herself, how she acts, not from fear, but from clarity. Such a woman no longer seeks justifications. She knows who she is, and this knowledge isn't loud but calm, deep, like the roots of a tree that can withstand any wind. It's in this state that a new level of self-trust emerges because a woman who finds balance no longer requires constant external verification. She hears herself, knows when to stop, when to move, when to wait, when to speak. She doesn't fear her own truth. And it's this feeling that leads her further to the capacity for making decisions not from fear, but from inner confidence, to the ability to trust herself. When a woman stops denying parts of herself, when softness and strength, logic and intuition become allies, an inner silence arises. But it's not emptiness, it's clarity. It's the internal I know. It doesn't require words, doesn't need approval. It simply exists as steadiness, as a core, as light emanating from within. This state of trust in oneself is the hardest, the most liberating, the most valuable. Trust in oneself doesn't appear suddenly. It grows from pain, from mistakes, from the courage to face what was hidden. It's born when you stop asking yourself, "Am I doing it right?" and start asking, "What is true for me right now?" It's a subtle shift. This inner maturing can't be bought, inherited, or gifted. It can only be nurtured, like a tree, every day, bit by bit. Every time you choose yourself, even if it's scary, even if no one cheers, that's a step towards true strength. Trust in oneself is a bridge between the inner world and external decisions. It's the ability to make a decision, not because everyone else does it, but because you feel it's right for you. The ability to trust your senses, even if reason hasn't found explanations. The ability to remain true to yourself, even when no one else understands. This is what makes a woman mature. She no longer gets lost in opinions. She hears herself, and that's enough. And when a woman begins living with this internal trust, she no longer seeks support from a partner, status, parental opinions, or friends' approval. She can be open to love, friendship, communication, but doesn't need them as a crutch. She is free, and within this freedom, there arises not detachment, but true closeness. For only those who don't betray themselves can be sincere. Only one who is faithful to herself can truly open up to another, not out of fear, but out of choice. This internal trust becomes the basis for practices that strengthen and expand her power. Because when you trust yourself, you stop hiding, you begin to act, you go deeper. At this stage begins the most vibrant practical embodiment of internal confidence, in body, in decisions, in actions. When a woman begins trusting herself, she no longer waits for life to change on its own. She feels it's now up to her, not from a position of control or anxious perfectionism, but from deep maturity. I choose myself every day. In this choice, actions are born that nurture her strength, not for show, not to conform, but to maintain the internal space where she feels at home. These actions are the practice, daily, simple, alive. The practice of strength isn't in grand gestures, but in regular self-attention. It might be morning silence with a cup of tea, when you don't reach for your phone but simply breathe. It could be journaling, pouring out anger, joy, fears, gratitude. It could be meditation or prayer. Anything that helps you return to yourself, hear yourself, already works. Not because it's trendy, but because it restores the connection. This connection is your most precious possession. Movement, too, is practice. Dance, walks, sports, yoga. Not for the body, but through the body. When you move, you remember you have a physical form needing care too. Not because you must be perfect, but because your body is your home. If you want to feel confident, you need to be in alliance with it, not in conflict. Each mindful movement is an act of self-love. And of course, the environment. A woman walking the path of inner strength starts feeling keenly who is easy to be with and who is hard, who inspires and who poisons, who supports and who merely takes advantage. This isn't about cutting out the wrong people. It's about choosing not from fear, but out of self-respect, creating around yourself a space where you can be authentic, without performance, without tension, without masks. Also important is learning, reading, broadening boundaries, acquiring new knowledge, not because you have to, but because you can, because you deserve to grow. A woman who invests in her development fills up from within. Her confidence isn't based on others' opinions, but on her discoveries. She isn't afraid to try, to stumble, to learn again, because she knows her value doesn't decrease from missteps, only grows. One more thing. Forgiveness, not only of others, but of herself. Let go of mistakes, past weaknesses, wrong steps. Not to forget, but to forgive, because every moment was a step on the path, because you were different, and that's okay. True confidence is impossible without compassion for oneself. A woman who knows how to forgive herself doesn't waste energy on self-flagellation. She moves forward with gratitude and calm. All these practices aren't a set of rules. They're a living path. They don't demand perfection, but honesty. If you do a little something every day to stay connected with yourself, you're already on this path. Because strength doesn't arrive like thunder. It accumulates. Drop by drop, you build yourself, alive, genuine, strong from within. This strength isn't loud, isn't provocative. It's like an internal core. It is you. When you live from this strength, you no longer need external validation. You're not seeking a savior. You're not afraid to be alone because you know you have yourself. And that's enough to go on, to love, to create, to live without fear, without guilt, without trying to become someone else. You are already whole, and therein lies your foremost truth. If this video resonates with you, leave this affirmation in the comments. I am whole and worthy. Writing it down is a powerful step toward internal alignment. You begin to turn insight into transformation. It also shows us that our work truly matters to someone. We're already working on the next video to expand on this topic, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Wishing you the best.